Council meeting. It is Tuesday, June 7th, 2022. The time is 6:03 p.m. We will begin with our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Our invocation tonight will be led by Mr. Hunter Wheatcraft, pastor of Branch Church. So if you'll lead us in the invocation from the microphone right there. The flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're on. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you so much for life today, the opportunity to just gather together here in this place to consider the city of Farmers Branch. Lord, I just pray for the officials over the city, just for wisdom, discernment, and peace in all things that you are leading us in.
We ask you your blessing over this time. Even as technical things come up, we know that you are good. And God, I just pray for hearts of mercy and justice and kindness and gentleness among the leadership here, among the people. God, that we together have a desire to better the city of Farmers Branch. And would it be blessed by our gathering here tonight. In your name we pray.
Amen. If you all please stand again, we need to do the pledge to our great state of Texas. So, honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Does this work, or you need me to yell? Okay. All right. So first up is considering accepting a donation in the amount of $1,500 for the Branch Connection from the Farmers Branch Women's Club and take appropriate action. So a little background, the Farmers Branch Women's Club would like to make a donation of $1,500 to the Branch Connection that will be used to purchase new equipment and supplies. And just a little background, the Women's Club was organized in 1963 as a nonprofit organization, providing philanthropic support to the Farmers Branch community through volunteer fundraising. With the help of the donations from local businesses, supporters, and club members, the Farmers Branch Women's Club supports local causes and provides scholarships to deserving students in the Carrollton Farmers Branch Independent School District. This isn't the first time they've been up here. I know it won't be the last. We're so appreciative of what these women do, what they mean to our community, their generosity, not only to our community buildings, to local organizations, but most importantly, definitely to those schools that are getting, or to the kids in our schools that are getting scholarships. And so I just wanted to say thank you, appreciate it. And if you'd like, you can share a few words before I call for a vote from our council to accept these donations.
Thank you, Mary Dye. We have worked hard this year. We were able to give 10 scholarships and also provide donations to 3 organizations that give back to the city. So that's what we're all about, and we appreciate the support we do get from everyone in the city, vendors and city council and everyone. So thank you.
I'm going to make sure this time it gets to the right spot. I know Sherelle's not here, but we will get it to her. With that, I make a motion to accept the donation from the Farmers Branch Women's Club. Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, eager. Wow. Second by Councilmember Driscoll. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, I will ask you all to mark your vote at this time.
Mayor, while we're doing that, I did want to thank the Farmers Branch Women's Club for their support of the artist formerly known as Prince and wearing purple tonight. Looks dashing.
As expected, this passes unanimously. Thank you all again very much. We really appreciate it. get you signed copies. Is Miss Johnson here from Stanford Sisterhood? We'll reschedule it to the next time. So, okay. All right. Next is the city manager and mayor's report on items of community interest. Mr. Land.
Thank you, Mayor. City of Farmers Branch suffered substantial damage due to straight line winds earlier this week. Cleanup continues with solid waste, recycling, and bulk collection teams moving as quickly as possible. Delays are expected due to the amount of debris, so please be patient and know that each home will be serviced as soon as possible, as we do have crews prepared to work this weekend should that be necessitated. In addition, excuse me, our code enforcement team will not enforce municipal code violations related to trash, bulk items, or debris left out for pickup this week to allow storm cleanup to be completed. Also, many family pets managed to escape backyards this week due to the damaged fences. Our animal services team is working to retrieve, ID, and return these animals to their rightful owners. Speaking of that, have you considered adopting a new four-legged friend? Our Animal Adoption Center has a number of adorable and adoptable dogs in-house this month, and new owners are in high demand. The dogs are all well vaccinated, microchipped. Please consider visiting, adopting, or even serving as a foster family. You can call 972-919-8770. Our city's sustainability department has been named as a finalist in DCEO Magazine's 2022 Nonprofit and Corporate Citizenship Awards. Nearly 500 nominations were submitted, and Farmers Branch made the cut. All finalists will be featured in DCEO's August issue. Congratulations to Shane Davis and his entire department. The next Denton Drive Live concert will be a must for all classic rock fans. Two incredible tribute performances will rock out in the Grove this Saturday night, June 11th. The Elton Johns will kick off the evening with their full band performance of Elton John hits. Then Rock and Roll Over will perform the music of Kiss in full makeup. Gates open at 6 p.m. and as always, the event is free. You can sign up for City e-News at farmersbranchtx.gov. Mayor, that concludes our report.
Thank you, Mr. Land. Before we continue, one quick note. I do want to recognize the young woman sitting behind me, Amy Pucana. This is sadly her last meeting with us. She has taken a position closer to her new home. She has championed so many evolutions and I guess improvements to how our record keeping is done in the city. It is characterized by the numerous awards that now hang on our wall. And so without her, we wouldn't be where we are. Without her, our council wouldn't be able to conduct its business the way that it does. And so while we're all sad that you are leaving, we're optimistic for your next opportunity. And so I just wanted to share that with you before you go, since I know you won't be here at the next meeting in June. So thank you. Next up is citizen comments. There's a 3-minute time limit for each citizen to speak. Anyone wishing to speak shall be courteous and cordial. No disparaging or inflammatory remarks directed at any member of city council or staff will be allowed. We have 5 people signed up to speak tonight. First up is Mr. Brown. 2735 Villa Creek Drive. Going once, going twice. Next up is Mr. Hoyt. Just name and address, please.
William Hoyt, 2819 Esterbrook Drive, Farmers Branch. Anything else?
No, you're good. Floor is yours.
Thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak before the council. My issue is the coyote problem in Farmers Branch. The animal control people do not kill, trap, or relocate coyotes. They are free to roam the neighborhood, killing cats who kill rats, of which we have an abundance of. The excuse given is they were here first. Now we have multiple generations that have been born in our city, and they're quite comfortable with cohabitating with humans. These are wild predators, not dogs. I've lived in Farmers Branch for 43 years, and I can assure you we did not have this problem in the early years of my residency. I saw animal control officers shoot a coyote on the berm across the pond from the library on Rawhide Drive at Webb Chapel years ago because the coyote was here in the branch. If my dog, who is vaccinated, gets out, I'm fined as I should be. A coyote is not vaccinated nor neutered, yet they roam free in our city. I'm afraid we're going to have a rabies epidemic at some point, or a child seriously hurt, like the 2-year-old in the White Rock area. He was drug off his front porch in front of his mother as they were leaving the house by a coyote. In a matter of seconds, he suffered a broken jaw and multiple lacerations before his mother could rescue him. And I mean, that was just in seconds. I am proposing that animal control tranquilize the coyotes and relocate them north of Denton in the farmlands, or even euthanize them, because I don't think the farmers need more coyotes either. But that's, my opinion of it. And if they want to start, they can go at sunrise to the Brookhaven Golf Course right off of Pebble Beach, and I guarantee you they'll see 4 or 5 of them cavorting on the golf course. And thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much for your comments. We do have Sarah McComb in the back of our audience who will be able to answer any questions you may have. Her specialty is exactly in this, and we got an update in this in study session. And so if you have any specific questions, she would be the best person to talk to, and she's here tonight.
Okay.
Sarah McComb, she's in the back there with her hand
I got
up.
a little hearing problem.
Oh,
so
got you.
I'm hanging on every word and reading your lips.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
back there with the badge on.
Thank you. Okay.
Call me anytime.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Anything for me now?
If y'all can, any questions we'll address
Yeah.
outside of the chambers.
It's out of control. I mean, I lost a cat last month.
If y'all can please exit the chambers for that conversation, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Next up is Mr. Hilkema.
Mr. Hilkema, thank you very much. I appreciate that. 2581 Brandywine Drive. All right, who's playing a game here?
You appreciate that one? Good.
I appreciate you letting me come up here. There's a bunch of folks up here. There's something else out of control. And again, I'm like that guy that used to come up here every month with the same issue. And the issue is this: our grass easements are out of control. And apparently there is no way. It's like fighting the Second Amendment. People have the right of private property. I don't seem to have the right to a clean easement. And I don't know how we solve that. But I know that you're going to come together to find some kind of compromise. Back in the storm that we had a few days ago, our power was off for 12 to 14 hours. And the reason it was off that long, finally Encore came by. And I said, it took you long enough to get here. He said, well, sir, the problem is this. And he pointed down the alley. He said, we can't get through that mess. It takes a while to get through that mess. Encore has a responsibility to take care of the lines, but they couldn't even get there. So I'm asking, there must be some way to bring together property rights and my rights as a citizen not to have to look at trash in the easement or endure the rats and the snakes and the varmints that come out of that. There has to be a way to handle that. I know we can come up with something. It's out of control. And you've got a whole list of rules and regulations. We got a letter in the mail about a month ago. All the things that we were responsible for as homeowners, a whole list of things. But none of those things can you enforce. Not a one. Because you can't access, when I say you, code enforcement can't access the private property. And I was told by an officer that they can't even access my property to look at the problem, because I invited him. I said, look, you're invited, we'll have coffee, and then I'll show you what the problem is, because you know my invitation about the coffee. Mm-hmm. And sir, I can have the coffee with you, but I cannot do anything about your problem. Our hands are tied. So there must be some way for those of us who live on these grass easements to deal with this. Now, I understand that you're going to do a sewer line in our property, so that'll take care of some of that. I don't know if I'm going to allow you on that property, though. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is Mrs. Hilkema.
Tommy Hilkema, 2581 Brandywine Drive, and I'm here for a public service announcement. This is the number to call Encore to come and trim our trees in the alleys. Every homeowner can call and place a request. They will come and trim the lines. This is why we lose electricity on Brandywine and Fieldale, because our alley sparks and arcs. We don't lose the lines, they just simply give out, and we lose electricity 10, 12 hours. This is the number. And if you can't get them, you can call Kitty Hobbs, our area manager. This is her number. What I'm asking is, could we put this in the bulletin that comes with our water bill, so people know that it's Encore's responsibility to trim the trees on the lines. And hopefully we won't be losing electricity so much, and the alleys may stay a little cleaner. So if we could possibly do that so citizens will know, and hopefully clean up the place. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our last speaker is Mr. Jones. Name and address, please.
Good evening. Jacob Jones, 2973 Sunbeck Circle. Mayor, Council, thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm coming this evening to talk about Chapter 94, Section 2.9 of the zoning ordinance. I'll read a small subsect of it. An accessory building may be used as a dwelling only in this district after approved by special permit, of which the City Council granted me permit 3575 just over a year and a half ago. The rest of it is related to a guest house or servant's quarters, and it says that a family of a live-in service worker may reside in the accessory building only if all adult members of the family are employed as full-time domestic service workers by the owner or leasee of the property. This is a very dated and antiquated piece that's still in our city ordinance. I've raised this up through the city manager's chain of command through multiple areas and haven't received much action on it. I have also applied for and received a short-term rental permit for the structure in which we referenced in 3575 and operate that. That was short-term rental permit 0028 issued by the city Farmers Branch. That was since revoked, and then I went to court over that and was found not guilty by a jury of my peers as we went through that for operating that short-term rental because it was revoked incorrectly by the city, which is what the jury found there, and that's why they issued the not guilty verdict. The reason I'm here this evening is I received something from the city office this week, a new violation stating that they would turn off my utilities, et cetera, if I continued to operate that as a short-term rental. What I'm asking the city council to do this evening is two things. One, to review Chapter 94, 2.9, as it's very antiquated. You know, I raised my sons, very young sons, in Farmers Branch because we love living here, but we certainly don't want to raise our family here on values that are from a pre-1968 era that are in violation of federal housing standards. You can't segregate based on familial status. So one, I think we need to revise that. And two, I would ask that the city council look at the short-term rental policy, especially short-term rental 28, and potentially look at issuing a stay on that as that was found as a not guilty verdict until the completion of the review for the entire Chapter 94 2.9 is complete. And I do have full notes and timelines for that that I'll give to the city as part of those comments if y'all would like to review.
Yeah, please do. Thank you very much for your comments. We'll get back to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. I'll pass these out in a second. Okay. Next is our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to, I guess, approve the agenda as presented?
Mayor, I'd be happy to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion by Councilmember Merritt.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Williams. Is there any more discussion? Seeing no one requesting to speak, I'll ask you all to mark your vote at this time. Motion passes unanimously. I'm going to do a quick pivot. Ms. Johnson is here with Stanford Sisterhood, so I'm going to get back to that, handle that real quick, and then we'll get to our public hearing. Huh? Oh, yeah. Okay. Get to come in. That's what we do here. We like to make people speak. So a proclamation from the City of Farmers Branch, Stanford Sisterhood, Diamonds in the Rough Week. Whereas Stanford Sisterhood, founded by Marguerite S. Johnson, officially established in Dallas, Texas on December 21st, 2016. And whereas the mission of Stanford Sisterhood is to strengthen the personal and professional development of underserved girls and women via multi-generational mentorship, advocacy, awareness, and the power of prevention. And whereas the camp teaches kids very important life skills and the time away from parents provides an excellent opportunity for youth to take initiative, exercise their autonomy, and develop leadership, problem solving, and social skills, which often build self-esteem, confidence, and resilience. And whereas since 2018, Stanford Sisterhood hosts their annual 7-day all-inclusive life enrichment camp, Diamonds in the Rough, the 4th week of July, for girls ages 12 to 17, including self-discovery, team building, college tours, exploratory field trips, a purity ceremony, and a graduation celebration. And whereas during the camp, it's an honor for Stanford Sisterhood to empower and equip our next generation of women, mothers, college graduates, entrepreneurs, leaders, and change agents with a focus on the following areas: mental health, self-care, STEAM, diversity, financial literacy, college career readiness, entrepreneurship. And whereas our core values are to shine bright, stand for solidarity, and serve selflessly. Stanford Sisterhood has positively impacted 5,000 plus girls and women via their camp and advocacy and awareness programs and reach out rallies. Now therefore, I, Robert C. Dye, Mayor of the City of Farmers Branch, do hereby proclaim the 4th week of July as Diamonds in the Rough Week. And the point of the proclamation today is to help raise awareness for the camp and the wonderful work that Dr. Johnson does in our community. I know I've been to several events, the camps. We've had former council members there as well that are able to talk to these women. And I think it's a wonderful thing you're doing. Appreciate that you do it, and look forward to the event this year. And with that, I'll turn it over for you to say a few things, and then we'll take a photo.
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. Yes, I am the executive director and founder of Stanford Sisterhood. And as you can see, the conditions of our society, our young girls are in crisis and they need help. And Stanford Sisterhood is basically to create a safe space and to also offer them personal and professional development. I'm so honored that I'm joined by my daughter, Mariah, and my summer intern, Brianna, and her cousin wanted to be a part of the experience, and Miss Kiana. And we've also attended the Farmers Branch Workforce Boot Camp, which is why we were late today. It takes a village to raise these girls and boys. Of course, my focus is girls and women, but it takes a village. So I would really love the support of Farmers Branch and to get behind the initiatives that we do. I do go into other schools, the ISD, and other communities really do get behind and support. And if I could just have the support of my own city that I have been in for the past 10 years, it would be greatly appreciated. Stand with us as we are continuing to make a difference. Thank you.
Next is our public hearing. Conduct a public hearing to consider ordinance number 3733, amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 82, Traffic and Vehicles, prohibiting the parking and standing and operating of certain motor vehicles on certain public streets, and take appropriate action.
Mayor, Council, Jay Siegel, Police Department Deputy Chief. No, it's Farmers Branch Police Department. I'm here this evening to present. Going to have the same echo. Am I standing too close to the mic? I'm here this evening to present ordinance 3733 to you, the citizens and the city business owners. Quick history on how we arrived at this point. At the council's request, a briefing was given on March 22nd study session on the current ordinance governing oversized vehicles. After receiving council's directions, a recommendation was given at the April 5th study session that Chapter 82, Article 3 of the municipal ordinances be amended, and this will be proposal ordinance 3733. Between now and then, letters were sent to the city businesses outlining the proposed changes we're about to review and giving notice of this public hearing. And I will mention, my name was listed on that letter as a contact point, and I only got positive feedback from those letters. So to recap, why ordinance 3733? Because the current city ordinances regulating oversized vehicles are outdated and do not reflect the city's residential and housing growth. Both the definitions for prohibited area and residential area do not include the areas west of Denton Drive and east of Midway Road. So proposed ordinance 3733 is going to amend Chapter 82, Article 3, with the purpose of protecting the health, safety, and general welfare of the residents and pedestrians, preserving the functionality and integrity of the city's public roadways, and avoiding any unreasonable restrictions on businesses and commercial traffic. So ordinance 3733 is going to expand the prohibited area in consideration of the recent residential development and amend the residential area definition to include all residential areas in the city. Also, the definitions in ordinance 3733, the definitions of motor vehicle, truck, tractor, trailer, semi-trailer, pole trailer, they're going to coincide with the Texas Transportation Code. And this slide just has an example of commercial motor vehicle to show you what it looks like. So map 1 here on this slide is a reminder. This is the current prohibited area. It's all in the shaded area, obviously, there. So 3733, this will be the proposed prohibited area. And as you can see, it now includes the residential areas on the city's west sides. So in proposed ordinance 3733, 82202A, it shall be unlawful for any person to park, stop, stand, or drive, or permit to be operated or park any commercial motor vehicle, truck, tractor, trailer, semi-trailer, pole trailer, or any combination thereof upon any public street, alley, parkway, boulevard, or roadway within the prohibited area. And I included the map again on this slide so you can juxtapose it with the verbiage. This is just an example of the type of vehicles that wouldn't be allowed in the prohibited area, or the ones you can guess, except the exceptions. So emergency vehicles, public utility vehicles, vehicles operated for public service, commercial motor vehicles traveling to or from servicing businesses, lots, residents within the prohibited area, and a business located within the prohibited area that operates commercial motor vehicles as part of the business. The reason for that is because of the explosive growth there on the west, we have a lot of residential areas that are going to encompass a commercial business that may have already been there that does utilize commercial motor vehicles. So we don't want to penalize them, and we put that as an exception. Buses, wreckers, and recreation vehicles are also exceptions. 82202 of proposed ordinance is new. So this is a new prohibition. And if this were to be passed, no person shall park, stop, or stand any commercial motor vehicle, truck, tractor, trailer, semi-trailer, pole trailer, or any combination thereof on any public street within the city's corporate limits during the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. And the goal here is to address the oversized vehicles being parked indefinitely on public streets. Streets are not intended for long-term parking. I think I keep leaning close to the mic here. And these vehicles can cause hazardous obstructions, diminished sight lines, and traffic congestion. Exceptions to this particular 8202B is again emergency motor vehicles, public utility vehicles, and vehicles operated for public service, and then buses and recreational vehicles that have the proper permit in 82222, which we'll discuss here. So the parking prohibitions in residential areas. Remember, now the definition for residential area in this proposed ordinance covers residential areas throughout the city. So it would be unlawful for any person to park a vehicle that has a gross vehicle weight or gross vehicle weight rating of over 10,000 pounds, or any trailer in a residential area, except for the purpose of loading or unloading the vehicle or trailer, and except for the holder of a 24-hour loading unloading permit, again issued pursuant to 82222. This is a little different than the current ordinance because it says a truck of 3/4 pounds. Now it says a vehicle over 10,000 pounds. That's the more empirical way that vehicles are classified these days, that the current ordinance is vastly out of date. So we want to kind of keep it in the same rate as far as weight, but we want to bring it up to date. Our exceptions, so notice the difference in the ordinance up there where it says vehicle, right, that's going to be inclusive of everything. The exceptions is going to be a pickup truck or a passenger van for personal, non-commercial purposes without commercial advertisement with a gross vehicle weight or gross vehicle weighting of 12,000 pounds or less. So this is going to equate to your 1-ton vehicles, is how they're described in the current ordinance. So think of like a common Chevy 2500 heavy duty. So also an exception are vehicles that are parked on or directly adjacent to a construction site that have the proper permitting. These are common types and weights of these vehicles, and I have this included so we can show the public and everybody here for the hearing just all the common vehicles that everybody drives on an everyday basis. And then the sweet spot here is this class 3. So what our ordinance allows is, obviously we can't have anything over 26,000 pounds in a prohibited area, and then you have these residential parking restrictions. But these type of vehicles that are 10,000 up to 26 can drive in the prohibited area in the residential areas, but they can't park there. But these are your common, like your Amazon vans, the bigger UPS vans, and even the bigger US mail trucks. So hopefully that's helpful. To parking permits, this is largely the same, like in the current ordinance, issued by the chief of police or his designee. We discussed that. No more than 3 allowed for the same address or street location within the year. And then also available is the 24-hour loading or unloading permit alluded to in the last slide. That would allow a vehicle to park for the purpose of loading and unloading the vehicle within a residential area. And the example given here is that person who is moving either into their house or out of their house, and they need to park one of these large vehicles there, and we go ahead and give them 24 hours to do so, as long as it's not obstructing the street or a driveway and there's no other state law violations. That would be fine. Enforcement. So any motor vehicle, and I need to point out a mistake in this slide, this should say any vehicle, right? So any vehicle is going to include motor vehicles, but it's also going to include your trailers and your semi-trailers, right? Because that's one of the issues that we have in the city currently. So any vehicle parked in violation of Article 3 may be removed or towed at the direction of the police department. And then this is a Class C misdemeanor, and each day a violation occurs constitutes a separate offense. And I included that bottom part. So generally the enforcement steps taken by the police department is we want to request compliance. We want to go out there and educate the person to the ordinance, whether it be the old one or the new one. Say, listen, this is what the ordinance read, please comply. And then we want to give them a reasonable time to do so. If not, then we move to citation, and after that, if necessary, we're going to abate, which equals towing. If proposed ordinance 37, I almost got too close to the mic again, hot mic. If proposed ordinance 3733 were to pass, that would render Article 3, Division 3 weight limits on streets redundant, and that would be repealed as part of the passing of proposed ordinance 3733. And with that, thank you for your attention, and I'm here to answer any questions the council or the public may have.
Deputy Chief Siegel, thank you very much for your presentation. Do any council members have any comments or questions at this time? Councilmember Jackson.
Mayor, so Deputy Chief Siegel, thank you very much. If I'm understanding correctly, then 82205, we need to remove the word motor from that sentence.
Correct. So it should just read vehicle. So then when you see vehicle, you go back to the definition section and it'll describe
Trailers.
motor vehicles, trailers, semi-trailers. Yes, that's my error. So, and it may be on the attachment that included in your study material too, but that'll be fixed.
Microphone, buddy.
It's already been corrected. Tonight's just a public hearing. It's not on for adoption.
It was my mistake, sorry.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions at this time? As noted, this is a public hearing. We have no one signed up to speak. I apologize. I said that this item was up for action. It is not. Tonight, it was just a public hearing. I'll get to you in 1 second. But before we move forward, I just want to say that this will come back and individuals will have an opportunity to speak again at that time, should they sign up beforehand. Councilmember Merritt, you had a comment?
Yes, I did have one question, and I want to make it clear to the public. We did send mailed notices to the businesses. I want to be clear that we sent, and do you happen to know the number? It's in excess of 3,400 or 3,700?
I don't know the number.
It was approaching 4,000.
Approaching 4,000. So we need to be clear that we communicated with our businesses. I did have the opportunity to have one business owner reach out to me. He was also favorable, wanting to make sure that we were actually perhaps even taking more action than was laid out here. But this was a step in the right direction. So I apologize for not making those comments earlier, but I did want to make sure that the public knew that our businesses were communicated and had ample time to respond. And as you pointed out, your contact information was there, as well as information about the ordinance. So thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Does anyone else have any comments at this time? Seeing none, I will make a motion to close the public hearing. No. Next time it'll be an action item. People can still sign up to speak. I have a second by Councilmember Williams. Is there any more discussion on this item? Seeing none, I'll ask you all to vote at this time.
Do you want to move up redistricting so we can get
I will, but I'm going to do much. Motion passes unanimously. Next is our regular agenda items. First up is an update from Metro Crest Services.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, Council, Mr. Land. Good to see you. Thanks for the opportunity to provide an update on the activities at Metro Crest Services, and thank you very much for all the support you provided us for decades, and especially during the pandemic when we had great needs. So thank you very much. Make sure I can do the slide. There we go. So I just want to make sure that I always reiterate kind of what our mission is at Metro Crest Services and talk a little bit about that. Then I'll get into some numbers specific to Farmers Branch. Our mission is all about self-sufficiency and independence. So while you hear a lot lately about helping with housing and food and some of the basics of life, we are very committed to workforce and financial education and other things that lead to families and individuals to be self-sufficient and seniors to regain their independence. And our core values are all about treating everybody with dignity and respect. We want to be a great place to work for our employees. Our frontline employees have much harder jobs than I do. I get to do this, and they work really, really hard in a very stressful situation. We want it to be something that they love doing every day, and we can't do what we do without volunteers, and so I know many of you have volunteered. If you haven't, please give me a call. We'd love to get you over there to volunteer. We need the help. We decided in the middle of a pandemic to celebrate our 50th anniversary and also to start a capital campaign. So we're not the brightest tool in the shed, sharpest tool in the shed, but the 50th is an exciting year for us, and we've made great progress on the capital campaign to build a new facility, which I'll share more with you in a moment. You know, our model, just to go through it quickly, is all about, again, self-sufficiency and independence. Most people come to us because of a crisis. They are about to be evicted. They're a senior living without water. It's a family with no food in the cupboard. But we also want to help beyond that once we kind of stabilize the crisis. Through our food pantry, financial coaching, employment coaching and job readiness, seasonal programs. We just launched Sack Summer Hunger to feed kids that normally would eat at school, have a free meal at school. We're feeding them throughout the summer. And of course, senior services such as transportation, home delivered meals to make sure our seniors have the opportunity to age in place for as long as possible. And just a little more detail on that, I guess I'll just call out a few things. Again, on emergency financial assistance, we're all about housing right now. You'll see that in statistics in a moment. The food pantry is all about accessibility to healthy food, which we think is critical. Financial empowerment is all about making sure we understand our finances. I never took a budgeting class. I never learned, I had a checkbook I was supposed to balance. I never did figure that out. Thank goodness we don't do that anymore. But we're there to help with financial empowerment, spending plans, budgets, credit score management, et cetera. Employment coaching, had a stat for the month of May. I just got it yesterday that of all the people we helped place in the month of May, their average wage is $20.06 an hour. So we're making progress on wages. Seasonal programs like Sack Summer Hunger help kind of get families through those tough times of the year when spending increases, the summer, holidays, et cetera. And then, of course, our senior population, which we want to do what we can to help them remain independent. A couple things about demographics I'd call out on the first slide about age. If you add up the 0 to 4 and the 5 to 18, it says 44% of those that we serve are age 18 and younger. So the 44% of those we serve are essentially youth. And so we deal with a lot of families who are living in poverty in our communities. This statistic is true in Farmers Branch and Carrollton, et cetera. And so we're very focused on the family. And then also about 9% of who we serve would be considered seniors, 60 plus, of which I shall be one this year. And then services by city real quickly. Carrollton is about 48% of those that we serve. Farmers Branch, 22% of those that we serve. That number's been a little bit higher some years. The city of Dallas, which we serve, a small piece of the city of Dallas, there's a greater need than ever before. So we're spending more time with that particular piece of geography. So when it comes to Farmers Branch residents served in our fiscal year, which is the same as yours, you'll see 2018, about 2,800 residents. It dropped to 2,496, about 2,500 before the pandemic first hit us. You saw that increase dramatically to 5,000, 5,500. This year, we're at 3,376 year to date. We expect to serve about 4,000 Farmers Branch residents this year, which would be about a 60% increase over the last pre-pandemic year. We don't expect our numbers to ever go back to pre-pandemic years. We expect to remain high. Maybe not at 4,000. We're going to remain high, unfortunately, for quite a long time. For those that are struggling, they were struggling before the pandemic. They're really struggling now. We're working with them much longer term. Housing stability. This is a rolling 12. Helped about 150 families avoid eviction. What we're seeing is For pre-pandemic, I would have told you 148 families with 148 months of rent. We would have helped for 1 month only probably back then. Now you see we're helping with multiple months. A lot of folks are needing 2 and 3 months of help, sometimes more, sometimes just a month, and you see we're spending quite a bit. I had one stat in my margin here that as an organization in the last fiscal year before the pandemic, 2019, we spent about $285,000 helping people overall, not just Farmers Branch, with rental assistance. In fiscal year 21, just in Farmers Branch, we spent $414,000. So we're spending $2 to $3 million a year on rental assistance, about 10 times normal right now. And we hope that will begin to wane. It's not, unfortunately, changing much right now, but we do believe it will start improving at some point, maybe in the calendar 2023. Most people know us because of the food pantry. We have a drive-through pantry now. We had to move outside, so hopefully you'll come volunteer with us in the, it is hot, but bearable. Almost 500,000 meals have been provided just this fiscal year to Farmers Branch residents. We're all about financial stability and capability, and so one of the things that have been challenging during the pandemic is that a lot of our families could not come in. We had the social distancing protocol, and so we lost connection with a lot of the families that we serve. We helped with the rent and the food to keep them stable, but often cannot connect with them as well on financial literacy, et cetera, or workforce. So we're beginning to ramp that back up again. We're having more interaction, clients back in the office again, which is great for us all to see. We do believe that face-to-face interaction is critical for us. And then employment coaching, again, doing more of that. I mentioned the $20 per hour wage, so it's $40,000 a year. To live in our community, that's still not enough for a single, but for a household of 2 incomes, it's getting us pretty close. With housing costs going up, we want to improve wages the best that we can. The senior side, we're still providing rides to the doctor for seniors that need assistance, home-delivered meals. If you've done home-delivered meals before, like Mr. Land has, for the last 2 years, we have not allowed volunteers to do that for us, and so we opened that up this week. So we're now wanting volunteers to help deliver meals at lunch. If you'd like to do that, it's a fun activity. It's a great wellness check for our seniors. So that's the bulk of what we do, and as part of the annual contract, which is now a 3-year contract. We also have a Safe and Sound program, and this is relevant in the sense that this has gone from a pilot, which you piloted, City of Farmers Branch helped create this program. It only occurred here. It became a program, and now it's become a model. And so before the pandemic, you saw there was a need for us to help families for longer term, to help with rent more than a month, but also engage them on financial education and other areas like workforce for longer periods of time, which we began to do. It might have been 2018. I remember when the contract was, but it was something that was new and a risk for us, a risk for you, and we still have that in place, and we appreciate the support. These are families that we're helping long term. We'd hope to help families for 7 or 8 months. They become independent, unfortunately, because of many things going on economically. It might take a lot longer. But one of the key stats for me is that one of our objectives was to make sure that school-aged children were able to stay in their home school. So provide the stability for the family so the child could stay in their home school. And of the families participating, currently 100% of them have been able to do that. We have a new program we're partnering with you on. I think home rehab probably is the proper word. We're helping seniors and those disabled with more significant home repair projects. In the past, we've done grab bars and other safety-related activities. And so we signed the contract back in, let's say, November of 21. This is kind of new to us, and so we've had to ramp up our processes. If you know us, we want to get processes in place so we can report on this accurately. We spent a lot of time getting that done. We've had 15 applications from Farmers Branch residents. Some were denied, and denied for a variety of reasons from there were certain eligibility requirements built into the contract as related to you had to have your property taxes up to date. You had to have homeowners insurance. It had to stay within $5,000 as well. And so, as you know, especially nowadays, $5,000 doesn't go as far as it used to. So we're kind of working through that, working with Ben and staff on looking at what adjustments could be made to make sure that we're helping as many residents as possible, those that have the greatest need. We're fortunate that when we had the storms come through, that I believe Mr. Land, Chief Latimer, and others were out surveying, and we were asked to help, I think, 3 families 2 with brush, essentially trees down, limbs down, like one we took care of immediately. We have another one that we're waiting on approval from the owner of the property. And then we're working now to get an estimate on a roof that needs to be replaced. And so we're working with staff on that to get that taken care of through this program. And so that was not built in the program initially, but it's be nice to be able to use these funds to help in those crisis situations. Did I tell you we're building a new building? So Josie and Beltline, close to Farmers Branch. It's a $15.8 million campaign. We have raised, actually this number should be $12.6 million right now. We had an opportunity to earn $2 million through a challenge grant. You probably got pestered by me via email. We earned that $2 million last Thursday. And so that put us at $12.6 million. And so we're 80% of our goal. We have another year of fundraising to go. We'll open in April of 2023. And that's my story. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Any questions?
Mr. Eubanks, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your leadership at Metro Crest Services and what you do, not only for our community, but our surrounding communities as well, because it's not just one of us, it's all of us. And the services that you provide is not something that we could replicate for how far you stretch our dollars. And so I want to thank you for that. And it's indicative of the Community Builder Award you just won from the local masonry group.
Oh,
so
thank you very much.
You know, I just want to thank you for those efforts and your leadership.
Thank you. We
And
appreciate
I'll open
the
it up to
support.
any questions that any council members may have. Councilmember Williams.
Tracy, I just want to say thank you so much for the update, and thank you so much for being such a wonderful steward and a collaborator, especially with our home repair program. This was, a long time coming, and we've looked for many, many ways that we could help, especially our aging residents.
Yes.
And this, as always, you guys took it and took care of us and made it an excellent program. And so I really appreciate you working with us to continue to serve our community.
Thank you. We'll do our best.
Yes.
Councilmember Driscoll.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation, Tracy. And it's good to know that you've got a capital campaign going on for the new building. That's great to hear that. But seriously, I'd just like to commend you on the many different hats you wear in your role. And as Mayor Dye said, I mean, this is not just about Farmers Branch, but it's about our community, all the students and kids that go to CFB. And there's a lot of different juggling in your role there and in the Metro Crest Services, and we appreciate it greatly. And the home repair program that's been mentioned, it was good to see the update on that, and that's something I think we're all proud of, that we initiated that at our budget retreat last summer.
Yes.
And it's good to see that that's rolling now. And you mentioned or showed the statistics there of 2019, 2020, 21. I just came on the council in 20, and I just, that's rear view mirror, we're moving on, but I just really like to commend you and all of your staff, because that was unprecedented time. People were losing jobs, people were afraid they're going to be evicted, et cetera, et cetera. And, the city stepped up with funding, as did our other neighbor cities that participate in Metro Crest Services, but it was an extra huge role and super difficult operating environment, as you kind of alluded to. And again, just hats off to you and your entire staff.
Thank you.
What you do for the community is tremendous.
I'll pass it on to staff. Thank you for the comments.
Anyone else at this time?
May I?
Go ahead.
Thank you for being such a great partner. We have needs sometimes that don't neatly fit into a box or a program, and I want to commend Councilman Roman. During the storms, we had a number of residents that were struggling, that were candidates for that program, and we didn't really have the luxury of going through an application and vetting and so forth. And you were right on the scene, and we were able to step in and help 3 families that did not have anywhere else to turn. So thank you for that, Councilman Roman. Thank you for bringing those opportunities to our attention, because there may be some people right now that would be in far worse shape than they are today. So thank you both.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Appreciate it. Going to go ahead and throw a quick curveball to those out there in the foyer, and we're going to move up the Redistricting Commission final report. I've never seen you hit one, so.
Nerves are killing me.
Throw him a knuckleball.
Name and address, kind sir.
Bronson Blackson, 3147 Rolling Knoll Drive, Farmers Branch, Texas, 75234. Sorry about that. So where shall I start? So good evening. I'm here on behalf of the Redistricting Commission, or the Redistricting Commission, and I want to give you all a little bit of background on what we've done over the last 8 meetings. So each council member appointed 2 regular members and 1 alternate member from their district. The mayor appointed 1 at-large member and myself as the chair. The commission conducted 8 public meetings and accrued over 250 hours working publicly to complete this project ahead of schedule. The redistricting commissions were characterized by a nonpartisan and cooperative spirit. This allowed us an opportunity to provide meaningful redistricting options to you this evening. Didn't start. So our purpose. The purpose of the Redistricting Commission was to review the decennial census data for the City of Farmers Branch and recommend new city council districts. The new districts are defined by criteria established under Resolutions R 2021-166, which was unanimously approved by council on November 16, 2021, and Resolution R 2022-008, which was unanimously approved by council on January 4th, 2022, as well as Section 710.b of the city charter, which was unanimously approved by a Ordinance 3503, which is actually action of the May 5th, 2018 election, which included 15 charter amendments. So the 2020 census defined the City of Farmers Branch total population as 35,770, which represents a 20% increase from the 2010 census figure of 28,616. So the new census information provides a new ideal size to be 7,154 residents. The ideal size of a district is a simple calculation that divides a total population by the number of council districts. The rule of thumb is that deviation from district to district is not to exceed 10%. So what is redistricting? Redistricting is the process of drawing electoral district boundaries based on new population information to ensure that each district has roughly the same population. So you ask, why is it necessary? So equally populous districts are necessary to ensure voters have an equally weighted voice in elections of council members. For example, a council member elected from a district that has twice as many voters as another district, voters in the larger council district would have half the much influence as voters in the smaller council district. So here's our current district map that we're all familiar with. So our current district map, when you apply the new census information to it, you have an overall deviation of 48.48%. That's between the largest district and the smallest district. So it's less geographically compact, and it splits neighborhoods and communities, and it has a couple areas of a poor utilization of streets as major thoroughfares as boundaries. And these are the major thoroughfares that are a couple of the areas that are. So here is a brief animation that kind of shows what our committee did over the 8 meetings. Okay, so what that showed was a quick, as the commission made changes, it kind of showed what happens to each of the districts as it changed. So what that did is that led us to our primary recommendation, which is redistricting map number 7 is our primary recommendation. So it increases the District 1 Hispanic voting age population to more than 75%. It maintained communities of interest in reunited neighborhoods that were split by the current district map. It established District 2 as a second majority-minority district. It utilizes major streets and thoroughfares as boundaries between districts. It was the most geographically compact map that we studied, and the overall deviation is 4.92%. And I should have been clicking this as we went, but. So here we have the demographics for the map number 7 that is our primary recommendation. Okay, so now I'm going to show each district. So as we made changes, the map moved. That was as we have maps 1 through 7. That's what kind of happened to the map. So we kind of translated that into what the map looked like. So the overall deviation for the new District 1 is 0.4%. And the actual size of it is 7,157. So it's only 3 people more than what the ideal size is. It utilizes Valley View Lane as much of its southern border, and it also unites the Rollingdale neighborhood into one district. So District 2, the deviation is 1.19%, and it has 7,239 residents in it, and it establishes District 2 as a second majority-minority district, and it provides Webb Chapel Road as the eastern border, and it unites the Dutch Village and north and south Rawhide neighborhoods into one single district. Next, District 3. So District 3, the total deviation is 0.62%, and the total population of that district is now would be 7,198 residents. It also utilizes Valley View Lane as much of the northern border. On to District 4. District 4 ends up being one of the smaller districts, and it has 6,912 residents in it, and that represents a total deviation of minus 3.38%. And it establishes Josie Lane as the westernmost border. Next to District 5. So District 5 has an overall deviation of 1.54% with 7,264 residents in it. It establishes Webb Chapel as the westernmost border, and it unites East and West Brookhaven into one district. So as a part of our redistricting, we also came up with a secondary recommendation. The secondary recommendation is redistricting map number 4. Redistricting map number 4 is very, very similar to map 7, but the only thing that changes is District 4 and District 5 borders. Districts 1, 2, and 3 remain unchanged. It increases the District 1 Hispanic voting age population to more than 75%. It establishes District 2 as a second majority minority district. The standard deviation of map 4 is a little bit lower than map 7. It's 3.37. It's geographically compact, but it's not as compact as map 7. It maintains communities of interest in neighborhoods. It, let's see, and it utilizes major streets as well for the district boundaries. So here is the demographics for District 4, or for the redistricting map number 4. And I'll go to conclusion. So both redistricting options presented in this report fully satisfy all prescribed criteria under resolutions R 2021-166 and R 2022-008, as well as section 17 of the city charter. Redistricting map 7 is more geographically compact, but has a slightly higher standard deviation of 4.92%. Redistricting map number 4 is less geographically compact, but has a slightly lower standard deviation of 3.37. So I'm sure we've got many questions that I would love to answer.
Former Councilmember Blackson, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for your leadership on this issue. I apologize if I spaced out when you said it, but I didn't hear it. But I do want to recognize the various members of the board that are the commission that are here.
We have some here, please. I'd like to see you stand if you were participating in our redistricting commission. So thank you very much. We all put many, many hours into it.
I know it's a very difficult process. It's something that definitely helps define our city, especially as we look forward in terms of who's voting for who to sit up here in these seats. And you know, that effort wouldn't have been done without you, the team, especially our partners in this. And so I do appreciate it. And you know, without further ado, I'm going to let you take some arrows from us and open it up for some questions. So you know, who would like to go first from our side? Councilmember Roman.
So, I guess one of the things that I'd like to understand is there seems to be a slight difference between map 4 and map 7 along Senlac. There's like a little block that was added in one and removed in another, and I was curious to understand why that was.
Okay, so what
That's on the left side.
Right, what we had, so map 4, going into the final meeting, map 4 was our primary map. And so our final meeting occurred in a post-election state, so we had information that we did not have in the prior 7 meetings. So what the commission did is I allotted them time to figure out if they wanted to make any changes that were specific to the election results. And they went through and looked at straightening up some lines and seeing what happened if they moved streets and whatnot. And those changes that occurred over there were really just a kind of a cleanup. If you look at that actual census block is something that is not present in map 7, and it just is a kind of a cleanup line, but that was not something that was done anything other than just, you know, aesthetically appearing.
Okay, so you mentioned that there was some information that you received after the election.
We just had the results of the election.
Oh, so that was the result that led to adding and removing that block?
Not necessarily. I wouldn't say it was the actual. It was a product that happened during that meeting. So the last meeting, like I said, map 4 was our primary map until we got to meeting 8 when we made those changes. And so it was one of those changes that when we start looking at maps, you want to kind of. I think of it as a more aesthetically pleasing. When you have things that overlap and look like this, it is not aesthetically as pleasing as others. So when our commission met about this, we were okay with either map 4 or map 7, but map 7 was the one that rose to the top. But it was one of those things that happened during that meeting, and it was just cleaning up that to be more of a straight line. It's really all it was. There's not anything other than just making that a straight line and following the census block.
Got it. Okay. And from my understanding, when I reviewed the materials that you all had to review when considering as you were creating these maps, and then I've attended some of the meetings as well. And one of the things that I wanted to ask and confirm is whether there was a need for, I guess, how many Hispanic districts were required. To my understanding, it was 1.
1 was required. 1 is required per the direction that we were given, and it was more or less it just became a byproduct of the map creation process. So when you start kind of looking at the numbers, all of a sudden we had a second one. It was not that we had that on the agenda to make one. It was, that just became of it when we started moving the lines and making a map. And the first map drawing, I think the second map meeting was not very, we weren't having very much success. And so I think that was a meeting I broke the group out into smaller groups, and I gave them a map, and I said, let's draw on it. We have to find some place that we all agreed upon, some area that we all liked, and stick with that and then move forward. And so that was kind of the night that it all started clicking. We all started kind of making progress and coming up with our first maps as well.
Got it. My next question is, I wanted to confirm that the one Hispanic district did not have to be District 1. It could be any of the other districts. Is that correct?
I don't, that would be a question for Bob. I thought it had to be District 1.
Bob's still on.
Bob's there. Here, Bob? He's talking, but we can't hear him.
You're muted.
It is not particularly relevant, but District 1 was created under the federal court judgment. And so I think that's the one that it makes sense to preserve. And as a practical matter, that's where the population is. So your district is going to be there in that geographic area almost necessarily. There was some issue or some concern as to whether you should cut that up and maybe try and make 2 a stronger district, but you certainly don't want to do anything that does away with or potentially does away with the district that was created through the federal court judgment, because then you're inviting more litigation.
Okay, so the answer to my question is yes, that it doesn't have to be District 1. Is that correct?
Well, it doesn't have to be District 1, except as a practical matter, your primary Hispanic district is going to be in that general area where District 1 is, because that's where the bulk of the Hispanic population is.
So the reason I'm asking these questions is because just coming out of an election, my district was largely on the west side and on the east side of town. And so looking at both of the maps that you all are recommending, while I appreciate your efforts and the time that you've devoted to this, it's really cutting out a majority, or not a majority, but a great deal of the people that voted for me. And so in good conscience, I can't support and say, you know, thank you for your vote, but go talk to another council member, because I won't represent you. So it doesn't feel right to me. And so for those reasons, I'm just having some difficulty ethically supporting either of these maps. And so I didn't know if there was an opportunity to create a Hispanic district using another one. And it looks like you guys did a really good job of essentially doing that with, I think, district number 2. But those were kind of the concerns that I had, and I didn't know if that was something that you all explored or talked about.
So so the initial assessment showed us that District 1 had 66.69%. The total population was there, and the voting age population was 61.92%. So that was the benchmark not to go down. So all of our maps, as we went through this process, one of the checks that we had was to ensure that those numbers stayed the same or went up. And so what you see is the increase in the plan to both those numbers in Plan 7 as well as in Plan 4. With that being said, this is a recommendation from us to council. So obviously you all will go through it and look at it. And if you feel that more maps need to be done or you guys create your own map, that's definitely something that the council's got the ability to do. But when we looked at it as a group, it was not, we weren't ever thinking about making another district other than 1 a primary Hispanic majority, just because that was already defined. And I think we asked for clarification, and Bob kind of mentioned it earlier, but we had asked for clarification on that, and I thought it would, based on reading the order, it had to stay as one. That was my understanding, but I obviously could be wrong.
Yeah, like Bob just said, he said, yes, it doesn't have to be District 1. It, of course, made more sense, but, as you guys were able to create another Hispanic district, I didn't know if there was an opportunity there, just because like I said, they voted for me. I canvassed that area. I know all the individuals in my district as it is now. But, so I don't feel right about just shoving them off to somebody else is the only thing.
Right, and I understand that, and this is just the same thing that will occur as when we redistrict at the state level. I mean, we've had times in the very, very recent years that we've been redistricted right down the center of the city that, previously was not the same district lines. So it kind of applies to the same thing. But when I look at the numbers of the newly created second Hispanic majority, it falls well below the threshold that was established previously in District 1. So I would be a little worried that if we were to make a change that put our numbers below what was the initial threshold, that we would be opening ourselves up for unwanted possible litigation. So just.
Yeah, and again, I'm just one voice and one vote, but I thought it important to mention that in case any of the residents that I've spoken to about this are listening or here in person. I wanted to make sure that I'm on the record advocating on their behalf as not wanting to push them out. So no more questions for me. Thank you.
Okay. If you'd indulge, I think former Councilmember Koch might be able to weigh in a little as well to provide additional clarity.
Come on up.
Based on all his head nods.
Councilmember Roman, I understand your question. I think, or I'm certain I do, is that your district, people that voted for you are not in your district under map 4 or 7.
That is correct.
Yes. So every district has that same issue because we had roughly 10 criteria that we had to honor. And in order to honor all of them and do them in a way that we could avoid potential litigation, is every district gets adjusted. My district had a couple different, you'll look at it, it's very different in the two maps. Some of it has a whole bunch of people that voted in District 4 election this time, just like you, for one or the other candidates would not be in District 4, and then another group, or in the other map, there are people in District 2 that end up in District 4 because we were forced to do that in order to make sure that we met or got very close to the 7,145 voters per district. So no matter which one we look at, whether it's 1 through 7 or the permutations of all of those, we still had that same problem. And so it was just something that was unavoidable. And it's really, for you guys, it's just going to be which one do we think will be best for moving forward in the future. And in terms of your question about does it have to be District 1 as a Hispanic, I'm not sure. I'm wondering if your question is, does a number have to stay 1 or could it be any number we wanted?
Right. Can it be District 2 or District 3 or any other district? And from what I understood from Bob, the answer was yes, that it could be any other district, not necessarily one.
It could be. The problem with that is we've had over the last 7, 8, 10 years since it started, each set of locations were voting at a particular time. So 1 and 4 were together. So we kind of developed this section of the town and this section are voting now. And then in the next election, it's this section and this section. And then the last election or the third election would be the mayor and the 5th district. And so if you change the numbers, you really throw out of whack the kind of the sequence, and you could, I think you would create where some people may not, a whole district may not vote for multiple years, and another district may vote 2 years in a row. And so that would be one of the reasons we didn't even look at changing the numbers. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Merritt.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Bronson, thank you for your leadership, I want to make sure that we talk a little bit about the partnership that we had with the legal firm. We have Bob on the line here as well. But also, if you could spend just a moment talking about the software that was utilized that allowed your commission to put together these numbers on a relatively quick basis. And then also want to remind everyone that all of your meetings were videoed, so they're all available on the city's website under the Agenda Center. So all of the process of going through this is there. So if you could just speak to those 2 points, and I have one other item.
Right. So, thank you very much. So I'm going to defer to Bob on the name of the software that we used specifically during the meeting, because it was something very specific that they brought with them. And Sherry was fantastic when it came to the live mapping. We would make live changes and we would produce numbers within minutes. And so it was a fantastic opportunity. Like Councilman Merritt said, everything was recorded. It was all live, and it's also on there to view. And I've gone back and watched multiple meetings to make sure I heard and understood how it all went down, to make sure that the next meeting was prepped and we were going the right direction. So Bob, can you speak up to the software that we used or was utilized by our group to make these maps?
Yes, the name of it is Edge, and it is designed specifically for redistricting. It's used throughout the country by multiple states. It's one of, there are multiple ones that are sophisticated redistricting software. So I think it's basically one of two. It's one that we have used in our firm probably for 20 years or more, although those are earlier versions and it is progressed over time, and we have been a beta tester of that. Sherry McCall, who was just excellent, who was the one who actually ran it in the meetings, has worked with it during that time, and basically it allowed us to put the map up on the screen. Everybody could see it, and whenever anybody wanted to move a street, to move the boundary of the district, we would do that. It would show what the result was in real time. It would show the change in population and deviation, in race and ethnicity, and so, it puts together much more information than you could probably ever use, and although the committee used a lot of it.
Thank you, Mr. Heath. I appreciate those comments. Then I want to make sure that the public knows that from my position, I was glad to nominate a couple of volunteers and an alternate who participated on this. I allowed them to do their work and not have any interaction with me because I wanted them to be independent and work through the process and allow the commission, as they are doing now, to present their report with any undue influences. I think it is important that we communicate to the public what the work has arrived at and understand those options. So I look forward to the communication plan that will be forthcoming, and I assume that that's probably a partnership between the commission and the city council on how that will be communicated going forward. Obviously, this is just a presentation tonight, and so I want to be clear there's no action being taken tonight. So there's the opportunity for individuals to digest this information. It is a lot to undertake, but again, I'll remind everyone of the videos that are out on the Agenda Center. You can understand the process and you can pick up the final report. And again, Bronson, I'd like to thank you and the entire commission, and Mr. Heath, you and your staff as well, for all the work that's gone into this. So I don't have any other questions at this moment.
Thank you. If it wasn't for Amy and her staff, we wouldn't have been able to have been as successful as we were.
Next up is Councilmember Williams.
Hello, former Councilmember Bronson. I appreciate all of your hard work. I know you guys worked tirelessly on this, and there's no good way. I mean, when you're talking about dividing up a city and taking old boundary lines and readjusting them, I know it's difficult, especially when you're playing a numbers game, no matter what. So I appreciate all of your task force's hard work and long hours. I do have one question regarding the Austell area. I know that one of the ideas behind redistricting is not to divide a neighborhood. I'm really familiar with that neighborhood in particular, and it looks like y'all divided that neighborhood completely. And so I'm a little bit concerned. I know that neighborhood is a very tight-knit community, and I thought that we were really kind of looking to use those major thoroughfares as dividers. And so I'm just wondering if y'all played with that. I mean, was it just a straight numbers game that made y'all drop that down from Valley View into Eric and not keep that very tight-knit group together, whether it be in 2 or 4 or 3? I mean, the number doesn't really matter as much as the fact that that neighborhood has been totally bisected.
That's a great question. So we were bound by, we're not able to, inside of this map is made up of many, many different little areas that contain census data, and they're called census blocks, and we can't split or divide those. And we did in our group discuss a recommendation of some census blocks that do need to be split, and I felt like it was not material for the presentation, but there are in that very region some ones that are large that extend all the way from Tom Field to Webb Chapel, and so, or to Josie. And so with that being said, it goes back to the lesser of the two evils, and it's an evil either way you look at it. I mean, there's a number of the commissioners that aren't in the same district that they were, like myself. I'm not even in the same district that I've been in. So
yeah, y'all took all of my commissioners out of my district.
That was part of how it kind of it happened, and like Mr. Koch mentioned, it was there's going to be an instance where if this, let's just say this is adopted, there could be someone that moves out of a district because it's effective. It would be effective the next election, so the May 23 election, that would move out of a district that would not be able to vote in that election, or that would have just had one pass, and so they wouldn't be able to vote. So that's part of the redistricting process, and I don't want to say it's a. Maybe Bob can help me. What did we say that was? It's not just it's what happens, but it almost is part of the process. And it happens. But there are some census blocks throughout the map that definitely need to get split, and it happens one of two ways. It happens why you can either recommend before the next census that you'd like to have them split, or it happens automatically if the population changes in that.
Explain to me a little bit more what you mean. So you're telling me that Primrose, Phyllis, down to Eric and Austell, that those are all part of one census block that you couldn't divide out?
No, each of those are, and it was the robbing Peter to pay Paul with the numbers is what it was. It's a whole numbers game, and when we decided on map 4 versus map 5, it was to be more compact. And the part of being more compact was to make District 5 not reach from the top of the city to the bottom of the city. And when we did that, it allowed District 4 to grow. And then your district was already was already heavy as it was.
Yeah.
It had, let me see, we had to figure out how to get rid of 2,200 residents out of District 3. And those streets between Austell and they're very rich in.
No, I get what you're saying. Why they're in 4. What I don't understand is why you're cutting it into 4 and 2 at Primrose, Phyllis, and Eric instead of at Valley View and at Josie, so that that neighborhood that is really tight either gets to stay in, either goes into 4, goes into 2, whatever it may be, but that neighborhood that is, I mean, because I know that that was part of the criteria, is not to break a neighborhood up. And that's a really tight neighborhood that seems arbitrarily to have been cut by 3 streets.
Right, and I don't want to say it was the lowest fruit, but it's the lowest value on our checklist. It was, if it got split, that was the lowest thing on the list. And so because those streets are so rich in population and whatnot, you can only take, if you need to get people from 1 to 5, you have to do it through 2. So you have to take some of 2 to give to 5 in the other direction. So we had, there were some very, very specific streets that we kept inside of District 3 that were all the branch crossing, which is all west of Tom Field, which was important, or the commission felt was important to keep that in 3, because there was a time when that was out of 3. And so in doing that, it was important to keep some of the neighborhoods, but we couldn't keep all of those neighborhoods. And I want to say maybe map 6 or maybe map 5 would show those neighbors, or would have those different down there. And you can look at those numbers. All of our information on the incident has all those numbers in them. So it was not that we specifically were trying to split up that. It just was kind of how it all fell apart, it all fell down.
You good? Okay. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, former Councilman Bronson. I know this is a very complicated, sensitive piece of work we're looking at tonight. I had the pleasure of sitting in on the first 2 meetings, and I was impressed with the software, impressed with the way the team just jumped right in and began working on it immediately the first night. So I have a lot of respect for the process and to the point in which we are tonight. So thank you very much for that. With that, just really for everyone's benefit here and those that are watching online, I think that we need to explain why the Hispanic voting age population is so important in this process. You did touch on it a moment ago, but I think it bears some spotlight because it is a major factor in this process. So Hispanic voting age population, and then also the meaningfulness of the deviation.
Okay, I'm going to address the second half of that, and the first half I'm going to defer to Bob. So Bob, can you give in your, I didn't bring any of the legal proceedings that determined what the reason why that was so important, but if you have, or so eloquently could explain why that's important, that the Hispanic voting and the voting age population as well as the Hispanic population is fairly represented.
Right. Under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, you have to have a map that does not discriminate. And basically, if you have an area where you have a geographic concentration of a protected minority, and Hispanics are a protected minority under the law, you don't want to split them up into multiple districts where you diminish that voting strength. Also, you don't want to pack them so much that if they could have 2 districts, for example, you keep them from doing that. But in this case, with District 1 is pretty heavily Hispanic, but you have to understand too that is not necessarily representative of what voting strength is, particularly if it's close to 50%, because with the Hispanic population, there are things that cause that voting strength to be lower than you would think from the raw numbers. The first thing is it's a younger population. Median age is significantly younger than the Anglo population, for example. Essentially, there are more Hispanics under the age of 18 than there are of other groups. And of course, if you're under the age of 18, you can't vote. Also, there's a higher rate of non-citizenship, again, which reduces the voting strength. So those are all things that we look at in determining whether we have a Hispanic district. We think, number one, is a reasonable Hispanic district. There was litigation, actually, there were 2 suits brought against Farmers Branch, one before the 2010 census, where the plaintiffs were not able to show that there was a necessity for a Hispanic district, and then one after, when the census data had changed and it showed a greater Hispanic concentration. The court said we had to, and ultimately in the resolution of that suit, what is the current map was the result of district court judgment. The federal court said, here's what you have to do. So that's, we have to do it to comply with Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, and failure to do so, I think, would make us potentially liable to another suit under Section 2. And I don't know if that answers the question, but if there are more specific questions, I'm happy to address them.
So the second half of this question was talked about the deviation. So back to my, I'm just going to read it because it makes it easier. So the standard deviation is the deviation between the largest district and the smallest district. And so the rule of thumb is to keep that below 10. And when we started, I always kind of felt like, let's be below 5. Let's see how close we can get to 3. And so when you start moving lines and moving numbers around, things change drastically really quick. So being below 5 it seemed like was not going to be possible. And we ended up below 5 with 2 of them. And so what that represents is the deviation between the largest district and the smallest district is, for our map 7, is 4.92.
Not to interject too much, but just, I frequently told the committee that, we want to be under 10, and we need to be under 10, but the difference between 3 and 5, 3 and 4, small differences in that really shouldn't drive things, because it's all based on the 2020 census, which is more than 2 years out of date. And there has been significant change since then. So, whether it's 3% or 4% probably doesn't make much difference. But we certainly won't be under the 10. And it's not necessary to get down to 0, because we know that even if we did, it wouldn't be 0 today, because the numbers are from April of 2020.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So the couple of questions that I have, District 2, between maps 4 and 7, didn't change at all. Literally, didn't change at all. However, there were dramatic shifts in Districts 4 and 5. And it seems to me that the 2 resulting maps were really trying to deal with the right mix of all of the elements or criteria in Districts 1 and 3. So I'm wondering why District 2 didn't change at all, but 4 and 5 did substantially between the 2 maps that you've arrived at.
Okay, so District 2, some of the streets that we identified the first night of drawing were Webb Chapel, being a dividing line, as well as Josie, if possible, and Valley View. And so in looking at those major thoroughfares as dividing lines between districts, those started forming the relationship that 2 and 5 had from the get-go. And so as we started looking at that, our problem when we got to map 4, it was the only reason why we continued forward was to make the map more geographically compact. So at that point, when we approved map 4, that was our primary map. That was the map that we said, hey, this is what we're going to present as the #1 map. And it wasn't until 3 meetings later that we come up with another map that superseded that as our recommendation. So there are a lot of places where I call them like rogue census blocks. that are long, and they go between, there's one that's along Myra between Josie and it goes all the way over to Webb Chapel.
Right.
And they really make it very difficult to redistrict around. And so with that, they're kind of littered all over the place. And so with that being said, we know that there's a development that's occurring right there next to the church that's going to change that for the next election. And so with that being said, it's almost like, do we recommend we change, that we split that one, or just let it get split by what happens already? Because after you get so many people in one, that's when they split them. So with that being said, it was not that we were having issues with 1 and 3. We were having issues with 4 and 5. We were having issues with which direction did we want to go with 4 and 5. Did we want 4 to continue and go all the way down to Josie, or did we want 4 to end at Valley View Lane, or at Webb Chapel, I apologize. So it was not that we were really set in one, or we were trying to keep 1 and 3 different. It was, by that point, we were really working on the aesthetically. So one of the things that it talks about is when you flip through and you look at a map, and you just kind of look at it, and if it's got some decent straight lines on it, you think, well, they did a good job. It's the maps that you see that have overlaying fingers that just look like you're trying to get one street, or you're trying to get one neighborhood. They go like this. And there were some maps of ours that had that, or map 3 had that, and map where we were taking and trying to get just a couple streets to make it meet the guidelines that we had and the criteria. So with that being said, it wasn't that we were trying to protect anything that we had done in 1, 2, or 3. Those, when we got to a certain point, we couldn't really change anything else in those that was going to be fruitful to our process. That helps answer the question, hopefully.
It does, and I understand. I know we had that census block, sort of that bootlegged up Morning Star down into the medical district, the hospital district, was really difficult to work with in some of the versions. I understand that. I'm wondering if in map 7, if the way you have districts 1 and 3 on map 4 would work for that.
Okay, I follow.
So if you take the districts 1 and 3 that you have on map 4 and put that on map 7 and leave 2, 5, and 4 the same.
So the only thing that changes on map 4 and map 7 is districts 4 and 5. 1, 2, and 3 remain unchanged.
Well, no, 3 does change from map 4 to map 7.
You're exactly right. There's a little area we picked up to straighten up a line.
Right.
I apologize. There was a line that we straightened up, but I say that because District 4, the map 4 was our original map, and it had that little kind of little thumb, or what you want to call it, sticking out right there. So in just trying to make the map more aesthetically pleasing and straighten up lines, I think there was 1 or maybe 0 in that, and it was just moving. It was just moving line.
Mm-hmm.
It was not. There were a lot of these that you can move that doesn't change the number at all.
Yeah.
So your recommendation was to use.
I'm just saying try it.
Try to use
is all.
Map 3.
No, map 4's.
Map 4, but use the District 3.
District 1 and 3, yeah, District 1 and 3, that's on map 4.
Okay.
Try that on map 7 and see what happens. They're not the same. There's a little carve out.
But that's what I'm saying, it doesn't have any number in it. It's not associated with any.
So then it goes back to my original question. If it doesn't matter, then why such a substantial shift in the boundaries? The deviation in District 4 between map 4 and 7 goes from a 0.34 to a negative 3.38. The Hispanic voting age population changes from roughly 24% to 30%. And if map 7 is in line with the targets, and I realize there's a lot of numbers at work here when you move just one street, why such a swing in the deviation and the Hispanic voting age population? And we even lose a couple of hundred voters or a couple of hundred folks in the population between those maps, but we pick up, we lose 300 voters from the map 4 to map 7.
But you pick up a great increase in the voting age population.
The Hispanic voting age
And I can tell you,
population,
so-
which takes our deviation negative. Yeah.
Right, so there's a couple areas and a couple neighborhoods that are like, when you take and square them off, there's 2,400 people in there, but there's not 2,400 worth of lines to cut up in there. And one of those is Johnson Park. And so when we added those streets to get the numbers to work, there's like 3 streets like Chalaburton and some of those right there. Those are what sway your Hispanic voting number change between map 4 and map 7, was that very, very, very specific neighborhood. And so in the map drawing process, we can actually show like a heat map that shows where population and certain types of population is, and that lets us know when we make a change, is the change going to be what we need or what we don't need, whether it be just a people. And so and part of the process and part of our maps that we had that Sherry could turn on, like a thermal feature would show, population dynamics. And so if she was to go back and turn on the difference in 1 and 3, it wouldn't change, even though we move that segment back and forth between 1 and 3, just because there's no one in that. Now, the next census, there will be people in that, but not for this census. And so one of the things that was a very important criteria is we were making, it was based on the 2020 census. It's not based on what we know of zoning has passed, or what we know zoning is coming up, or what we know is being built, or what we know is now. It's what was happened in 2020. So none of the things and none of the changes we made were based on anything other than that PL 74 data that we were given. It was not based on, we know we've zoned in 5,000 more apartments in this area, or we've got 1,100 more houses out there. It's not that. It was based on what happened in those numbers.
Right. Okay. Very good. Thank you. Again, thank you for all your hard work and your team.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Councilmember Driscoll.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you also, Bronson. I'd like to commend you and also everyone that volunteered their time and effort and a lot of hours on this committee, and it is very, very important. I attended, but did not comment at all, and sat in the back the first 2 or 3 meetings. And I wanted to do it just because this is done every 10 years. This was new to me as well. And I know there were a lot of complex factors that were outlined by the attorneys and everything. And when I attended the first meeting, I thought, wow, how is this ever going to work? Because there were so many different criteria and factors, and what's the definition of a neighborhood, and what's the definition of a community, et cetera, et cetera. But I just have to commend all of you for doing a great job. And I have watched all of the meetings after the fact on video, and I think that's important to communicate. I've had questions about this from the beginning of the process, and I've encouraged people to watch the meetings. And I'd also just like to reiterate, it's been said here, that this was independent. It was, we all selected people to be on the committee. It was balanced as best we could possibly do. And it's going to have to be done 10 years again. And when I first looked at some of the potential boundary changes, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm losing a lot of my district. And so I don't think any of us would say we're thrilled, because it's going to affect all of us. But there are a lot of streets that I walked and a lot of folks that I know, and they're not going to be in my district anymore. And so that's just kind of the way it is. That's life, and we have to move on. But I think the process was very transparent, and I don't really have any questions. And this is just an informational meeting, so if there are other questions and things like that, we should be able to take care of them.
Right. And, if you guys have any questions in the future or need me to speak again, I'll, be glad to do so. And, just to reiterate, I didn't receive a call, a text from any of you, and I wasn't expecting to, just from the process, but, I got more questions from neighbors just kind of hijacking me on the way home, saying on the porch when I get there, and it was just a question wanting to know what was going on, or I hear you're moving us here, I hear you're moving us there, and it's not that we were moving anything. We're just trying to make a change that gives a map that makes it look like Farmers Branch and feel like Farmers Branch, because a lot of these neighborhoods that I walked whenever I was running for council, you learn real quick the makeup of the neighborhood when you didn't know that was what was there and whatnot. So I learned a lot, especially about District 2, And it was the District 2 that I feel I see now is more representative of District 2 than the way District 2 is drawn today. And so that was a big thing to just to kind of really understand, is as you're walking these neighborhoods and going through these neighborhoods, you learn what's there and you learn the people that are there. And so it was, there was not any specific neighborhood that we tried to unite versus another. We really just tried to make a map that would stand up to any litigation or stand up to the test of time. And I feel like that's what we did. We really stood up to I even asked Bob, and I said, well, how would you pick this apart? Or what would you do? Or what would be wrong with this map? Or what's going to open us up for the potential litigation? And we talked about all of that. The whole group talked about that.
Yes, I just wanted to add a couple of comments. One, when you were talking about Bronson, some of the districts and other maps that you had looked at that were more like this with, funny lines and fingers and obviously was drawn to include or exclude certain areas. I remember that Bob and the council that has done this for many decades was showing some maps from Houston where it resulted in lawsuits because they were clearly, including and excluding certain neighborhoods. And so I think, you guys have done probably the best you can because it's not a perfect solution. And again, this will change again down the road. And also, I nominated 2 people for the committee and 1 alternate, and I'm losing 2 of the 3 in the new map. So it affects all of us.
Okay, thank you. All right. Bronson, thank
Until
you very
next time.
much. Appreciate it.
Mayor, I had one more question.
Now we're going to move this along. We're going to have more discussion on this in the future, so you'll have time to do that at that time. And if we need them back and we need them to run some more scenarios, we're going to keep them engaged and at our will to do so. So thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate all of y'all for your time and energy, truly. Next up is J2. Consider approving resolution number 2022-073, authorizing a letter of intent between City of Farmers Branch and DSE Hockey Centers LP related to the construction and operation of a multi-sport recreation center and take appropriate action. Ms. Cook.
Good evening. So tonight, we are going to be talking about the letter of intent for the Dallas Stars for a project we've been working on for approximately 2 years. We are kind of at the nth line here. Sorry. And tonight, I have a lot of attachments with the item, but we're only talking about the new building and the letter of intent for the new building. So I took out some of the information on the letter of intent, and I just want to go through it real quickly in a few of my slides. I have a few more too. For the new building, I call it STARS 2.0. There in the green star on the location map, you can see the location. It would be a 25-year lease term. City maintains ownership of the land. It's called a 25-year ground lease. And it's up to $25 million bond issuance for a multi-sport complex. We got a OPC, which is an opinion of probable cause from Lee Lewis Construction of approximately $23.3 million, and that's an approximate number. The annual rent is what we refer to as debt service, will be fully paid by the Dallas Stars. They would be the tenant for the full lease duration. We would hope to commence construction in November of 2022, complete construction in August 2023 in a perfect world. So here's a timeline that's been adjusted so that we can have more of the lease negotiations wrapped up in the month of July, which brings us to a July date for the issuance of bonds. A July date with the lease terms that we can talk to the city council about in the executive session and whatnot, about the lease terms of the new building, the 2.0. And we can begin design build next steps of what that looks like, and that would be baked into the lease of the new building. And I just put the upcoming city council meeting. It's just fair to note that we have an existing building with them, that in 2003, we did the same method. We have bonds, and that in 2004, a lease was executed, and they've been a good partner. We actually have them in the audience tonight, so be kind with your words. But it's been a good partnership, and they've never been late on a payment, and it's been a good entity, so we can't complain. For the existing building, as you know, that's 2 sheets of ice. It's a hockey center. The new building will be a multi-sport facility that is basketball and volleyball. And basketball and volleyball, the courts can also be pickleball and some other things. But that generates more hotel occupancy tax for our hot fund than perhaps the 2 sheets of ice that is specifically for hockey. So those are just food for thought as we discuss the LOI for tonight. I do have the attachments for your reading when we reconvene in July. You'll be prepared for some of the previous backstory. I was estimating what we refer to as HOT, the hotel occupancy tax estimate annual benefit with the new facility. It's approximately $200,000. It's an approximate number. That's based on the tournaments we believe we can get and the average room rate. And public use hours similar to the building we have, and I would say entertainment is additional use for the station area that we've been trying to revitalize for quite a bit of time, 20 years. And that is the end of my discussion on the letter of intent for tonight, which is all we're discussing tonight for the new building. But I'd love to answer questions on either or one or none. I have Hilltop Securities here tonight to talk about bonds. As you know, Ms. Sherelle Evans-Jones is out of town. And we do have the stars here if we have questions about the stars.
Ms. Cook, thank you very much for your presentation and work on this. Does anyone have any questions out of the gates? Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Allison. So my understanding is the contract that we've had with the arrangement with the Stars has been good for us, right? And they wish
I would say so.
They wish to extend that. It's coming up on its 25th year.
That's correct.
Okay. Everybody knows the Stars, and we could probably safely assume that they're all good financially, but have we done a credit check? Is any kind of a financial credit check that we do on them?
I have not done a recent credit check on them. I would like to say I think they're in the playoffs, but I have not done a credit check on them, but we can. Okay. And I think it's prudent to do.
Okay. So they obviously know hockey, but we're now moving to a volleyball, basketball facility. So help me understand sort of what their market share, if that's the right word, for their business is?
Yes, thank you for the question. I probably should have noted about 2 years ago, they also decided they were going to be a partner with Select Volleyball. So they own a Select Volleyball entity, is my understanding, and that's when they started to realize, this is probably a profit center for us. And so they're actually now in that space as well.
Okay. There's a lot of success in youth sports. As a former hockey father.
Yeah, I think any parent can tell you those fees are,
I can attest
that's real.
to the money that can be spent and the money that's probably made.
Yes, this is correct.
Very good. So one other question. With the estimated $1.658 million of rent, does that number move based on the actual bond issuance and what the debt service will be?
It will. That's an estimate based on when we ran that. So when the day we go out for the issuance of bonds, that will be the real number.
Okay.
But it won't be too far from that, and the Stars is aware of that.
Okay. And the number is designed to only cover the debt service. There's no margin or cushion in there for Farmers Branch anticipated?
The debt service will be completely paid by the Stars, and they will be subject, similar to the first building, of the operational costs.
Okay.
So.
Okay. And we'll benefit from hotel, motel, restaurant?
We will. I mean, people love hockey, of course, but for 90,000 square feet of basketball and volleyball, we do believe it'll be a significant increase. And I can tell you the hotels would probably enjoy that as well. I think I noted one hotelier in the audience tonight. So, when those sporting groups come to town and those tournaments, it's a large business,
and we'd like to secure those. And so with a multi-sport facility, we will now have a chance to do so.
Okay.
So the 200,000 is the 7% of a certain number that we arrived at based on the in-season time for basketball and volleyball throughout a 12-month cycle.
Okay. And if I recall correctly, the existing contract with the Stars had a 2-year escrow to it. The new contract will have a 1-year escrow.
I believe the existing contract had a 1-year escrow. I could be wrong.
Okay.
But, and so we returned a portion of that during COVID, just because there was some hardship. But we had that there, and they never needed it in all those years. And so we will owe a portion of that back at the end. But yes, the lease duration of the 25-year bond and ground lease will end in 2029. And today I sent an update of the 2017 lease amendment. That's the updated terms for the rent. It's just good to note for whoever would like to read all of my attachments. It's just good to note that we had already negotiated the lease rate renewal. However, they have taken on the operating expenses instead of the city for future terms if we choose to renew with them, because again, this is a ground lease and the city owns the ground, but they are a solid tenant and they pay their bills, so we can't complain.
Right, right. So last question last two questions. Why COs and not do a bond issue here?
Why COs?
Right.
I would defer to our acting city manager or our city attorney because I can't really answer why COs versus other methods of financing. But when we fleshed it all out, we came to this conclusion. But do you want to discuss why COs? I can tell you why not the private sector, because we went through 2 developers and the fees are too much. So the 1.6, that doubles pretty quickly.
Right.
And it's not sustainable. So we went through that route for about 18 months with 2 different people. So then it turned into how can the city help? And what is the function for building a city facility for recreational use? And we arrived at COs. I'm not aware of another financing model that could do a recreational building, unless you are.
We looked at revenue bonds to begin with. That would have been the easiest way. The Stars, based on their agreement with the NHL, are not able to publicly share their books. We have talked to them. They did allow us to come in and do a review of their books originally, privately, for the hockey center. So revenue bonds are out. The next one was, could we put this on a bond to vote? There's an opportunity cost because they're going to have one of these in a market. This makes perfect sense because it's co-located next to an existing hockey center. They like having a manager of both. There's shared parking. There's a lot of economies of scale. So we risk, if we wait till, say, November to put that on there, that it passes or doesn't pass. That puts them into another season. They've indicated to us they really, really need to be operational towards the end of next year. So we could do that. We take the chance of them going somewhere else. So we felt like we've had a great experience with them on our first center. They've reinvested in the building. They are interested in extending that lease at an additional 25 years. It's been a good situation for us. They've never missed a payment, and we saw this as a very low-risk entry into a facility that with an experienced national credit tenant.
Right. So I think for the benefit of the residents, because many may not even know this, that Farmers Branch does a really good job of attracting a lot of youth tournaments here. And we've got a lot of facility now that's being used for youth tournaments, and that's good for Farmers Branch. And so I don't know where the Dallas Stars rep is, but I think Farmers Branch is a great place for this facility, great location. Right? We just want to make sure that it's a great deal. We know we're working with a great partner. History has told us that.
That's true, and I may note Ann Stokes is in the audience tonight, so the reason we have the tournaments here at all is because of Ann. So she is the salesperson for tourism, and she goes out, and she's sitting right there to my right. There we go. And I promise I wouldn't call up on her, but she is there. And so she is the one that goes out and meets with businesses and with the large sporting venues that you may know of.
Right, good.
Yeah, so she's the reason why we can get all the tournaments.
And competitive girls volleyball is one of the markets we actively go after. We don't
Yeah,
have
we
the
do.
courts here, so we are partnering with other entities to bring those rooms here. We don't have the courts.
Correct.
This is 16 courts. I mean, that is a mega complex. It's 90,000 square feet. For us to have that without any debt and to be able to generate over 1 million visitors a year and all the hotel rooms that come with that is a real boon for us. Plus, that provides a tremendous amount of visitation for our restaurant park and some of our other businesses and hoteliers.
Yes, good point. We're banking on those parents stopping for a hot minute at the Shops and Mustang station and then going and picking them back up,
Right. Good.
is the hope.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Driscoll.
Yes, thank you for the presentation, Allison. And I think as you indicated at the beginning of your remarks, we've discussed this for something like 2 years in executive sessions. And we've looked at other possibilities, other companies, other venues as well.
Correct.
And I'd just like to say that I support this. I'm very, very excited about it. And this brings a lot of synergy, not just for the Dallas Stars, but also for Farmers Branch. And it will help us become even more, and a more important sports mecca. You know, again, some folks aren't maybe aware, but we do a lot of soccer tournaments here for, you know, boys and girls.
Yeah, we do.
Softball, baseball, and we've had the hockey center here, and I've met folks that have come from all over the area here and bringing their kids here to learn skating, to learn hockey, et cetera. And then the opportunity to add, you know, a massive facility right on, you know, the entrance to Farmers Branch at 35 with, you know, 16. I mean, and again, as you said, it can be used for different types of things. And I've already had inquiries from people, oh, well, couldn't they also do pickleball? And I said, well, and you answered that, I think. So
Yes, correct, you can.
I just think it's a win-win for Farmers Branch and for Dallas Stars. And again, I think it will just, you know, really emphasize that Farmers Branch is a real sports mecca in the Metroplex.
Yeah, I
and
agree.
so I support this fully, and I'm really excited about it coming here.
And I just want to make sure that everyone's aware the city maintains ownership of the land for future value and that the city is not paying for it, that the Dallas Stars are a tenant and they pay for it in the form of what we call rent or debt service, just to be clear.
Okay. Councilmember Roman.
I don't have any time limits, right? Okay, I just want to make sure of the rules. So I do have one question. It's my understanding that residents are going to have the opportunity to utilize the facility during certain times, right?
That's the hope in the operating agreement, that we build in all of those details.
Okay. And if this was something that was approved, when would we expect for construction to begin?
In a perfect world, and the planning team's pretty fast for approvals, but in the perfect world, it would be November of 2022 because they need to be operational and open in August of 2023, which means we have no time to sit idle. And every single week during the summer, it will be important for staff on this specific project amongst multiple departments.
Okay, and who will be responsible for any kinds of maintenance or repairs or?
The tenant will be the Dallas Stars.
Okay, and then most of the other questions were actually asked by Richard, so we're good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any questions at this time? Councilmember Merritt.
Thank you. Allison, I did a little bit of homework. There doesn't appear to be a venue of this size anywhere close. Is that correct? Can you kind of help us at 90,000 square feet and the 8 basketball courts for this purpose and the 16 volleyball courts? I didn't see, just scouring.
Correct. I do not know of a 90,000 square foot building in the trade area loosely. There was a building far north in Collin County that the Stars were in for a short volleyball season, and I think it was 50,000 square feet, and it was old and they left for that entity that they're partnership with. So for 90,000 square feet, I'm not aware of any, but I could be mistaken.
No, and I think that's the point I'm trying to emphasize, that this is a sizable footprint of a building with a nationally known athletic entity, the Dallas Stars, that are now operating, as you've already pointed out, in the select volleyball season as well as basketball season. And Mr. Jackson, you applied your parenting knowledge in hockey. Mine was in soccer, as well as early in basketball. Those seasons run 12 months a year.
Yes.
And so that is simply an opportunity that I believe the city can't pass up with the financing that is put together here. I think business moves very quickly, and I think we need to take advantage of that. And if we don't, we will miss a fantastic opportunity for our community, and the economic impact has already been talked about this evening. The ripple effects will be long felt in our community, and that's only a good thing of building a vibrant community and being a destination for athletics and just being a good partner with our business partners here with the Dallas Stars. So thank you very much.
I concur. There will be a regional impact multiplier for every person that comes there and they spend money in the trade area and things of that nature, but specifically things we can measure or hot fund and things of that. So I'm excited about the possibilities too, especially since the hotels the past 2 years have had a struggle. So I'm excited for them because when you look at it, they're some of our large companies too. When you look at how we weigh the definition of large company. And so they are our partners and they will benefit from this.
Any more questions from anyone? We don't have anyone signed up to speak to this item. It is marked for action. So if there's no more discussion, I will look for someone to make a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve Resolution 2022-073.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Williams, a second by Councilmember Roman. Is there any more discussion? Seeing no one requesting to speak, I will ask you all to vote at this time. Motion passes unanimously. Next is J4, elect a mayor pro tem and deputy mayor pro tem and take appropriate action. So up for this, Councilmember Rotano was our mayor pro tem previously. She is not on council. Michael Driscoll, Councilmember Driscoll, was our deputy mayor pro tem. Typically in instances you move up, but this has always been a conversation between the council and who they want to put into those positions. And so with that, I will open it up for discussion, recommendations, and appointments to this item. Councilmember Roman.
So I don't know if we have to make any nominations or how this works, but I think Tracy would be a great deputy mayor pro tem, and I think David Merritt, Councilmember Merritt, might be a good candidate for mayor pro tem.
Okay. Is there anyone else wanting to speak or make recommendations? Councilmember Driscoll.
Yes, as you said, this is, topic for discussion and to vote on this evening. And when I came on council, I was a rookie like everybody else, and I just wanted to say that, I've enjoyed being a deputy mayor pro tem and representing the city at some different venues, and sometimes when you couldn't be at an event. And I love the city. I served on the Quality of Life Bond Committee 5-6 years ago, and all of the bond proposals that we came up with were approved unanimously, and those funds are helping change our city. And I served for 4 years on the Planning and Zoning Commission before coming onto council, and if it'd be the wish of the council, I would be honored to be Mayor Pro Tem.
All right. So far for nominations, Councilmember Driscoll for Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Merritt for Mayor Pro Tem, and so far only Councilmember Williams for Deputy Mayor Pro Tem. Is there any more thoughts or comments on this? Yeah.
Mr. Jackson. So Mayor, I'd just like to support Councilman Roman on his recommendation, for Councilman David Merritt as Mayor Pro Tem, and Tracy Williams as Deputy Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, with that, it seems y'all aren't going to speak on y'all's behalf. So, I guess with that, if someone is wanting to put something to a vote, I would need a motion for Mayor Pro Tem and Deputy Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Councilmember Tracy Williams as Deputy Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember David Merritt as Mayor Pro Tem.
I have a motion by Councilmember Roman.
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember Jackson. Is there any more discussion regarding this issue? Seeing no one requesting to speak, I'll ask you all to mark your vote at this time. Motion carries 4-0 with an abstention as a yes vote in this case, so passes unanimously. Congratulations on y'all's new titles.
I'd like to thank the rest of the council. Look forward to working with you all as we try to advance our city. Thank you.
Next is the City Council Liaison, internal, external boards. We had a lot of discussion and study session about this item. We have left one other item to discuss on this one. We don't? Okay.
So Tracy Eubanks is allowing us to have 2 liaisons, as does Coppell. So we can let them know.
Perfect. Settle. Man, sometimes you just let stuff lie and it finds its answer.
No one was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next time.
Do you have this marked down? Okay. Is there any other comments or questions as it relates to board, external and internal board and commission appointments? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to accept the slate as presented.
Mayor, I make a motion that we...
Oh, I can announce it, that's fine. For the public. The Texas Municipal League is, do you have I need the list from you.
You need it?
To end the excitement, Texas Municipal League, Mayor Dye, Councilmember Williams, Metro Crest Social Services, Councilmember Roman, Councilmember Williams, Sister City Program, Councilmember Driscoll, COG, Mayor Dye, Dallas County Public Health Advisory Committee, Councilmember Williams, Trinity River Authority, Councilmember Merritt, Youth Advisory Council, Councilmember Merritt, DART, Plano appointee, Metroplex Mayor's Committee, that'll be Mayor Dye and now Councilmember Merritt, North Texas Commission, Councilmember Driscoll, Councilmember Jackson will be the backup, Farmers Branch Chamber of Commerce, Councilmember Jackson, Animal Shelter Advisory Board, Councilmember Driscoll.
Farmers Branch Chamber of Commerce is going to be Omar Roman.
Oh, okay. Omar Roman, and then that'll put you in the Metro Crest Chamber of Commerce will be Richard Jackson. Animal Shelter is Councilmember Driscoll. The Travel Expense Review Committee, Councilmember Driscoll, Councilmember Williams, Councilmember Jackson. That is the slate as presented. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, make a motion to accept the slate as presented.
We have a motion by Councilmember Merritt,
Second.
second by Councilmember Williams. Is there any more discussion? All in favor? Or sorry, please vote at this time.
Old habits.
Old habits die hard, man. Passes unanimously. Next, J6, consider 2022 annual board and commission appointments and take appropriate action. Do we have any discussion on this item? We don't have anyone signed up to speak, so with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion to adopt the attached slate list as presented.
I have a motion by Councilmember Roman.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Merritt. Is there any more discussion? Seeing no one signed up to speak, please mark your vote at this time. Passes unanimously. Oh, he's back. Next is item K, take any action necessary as a result of the closed executive session. We have 2 items to act on. Councilmember Williams.
Mayor, I make a motion approving sale of 2624 Lita May. I move that the city manager be authorized to negotiate and sign contracts and other such documents that are reasonable and necessary to sell to the Farmers Branch Local Government Corporation for the purpose of resale to Wilson OC and/or assigns the property described as Lot 7 and Block B of Letha Lee Heights, known as 2624 Lita May, for a purchase and sales price of not less than $220,000, with the resale of said property to be subject to a restriction agreement requiring construction of a single-family residence of not less than 2,050 square feet of air-conditioned space with an assessed value of the property upon completion of construction, inclusive of both land and improvements, to be not less than $500,000.
I have a motion by Councilmember Williams.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Merritt. This is a point of order. We had no one signed up to speak to any executive session items tonight. So seeing no one wishing to speak, I'll ask you all to mark your vote at this time. Motion passes unanimously. We have one more action to take.
Mayor, I move that the city manager be authorized to negotiate and sign contracts and other such documents that are reasonable and necessary to sell to the Farmers Branch Local Government Corporation for the purpose of resale to Samuel and Leslie Gomez and/or assigns the property described as Lot 17 and Block 3 of Green Meadow Estates addition, known as 13330 Veronica Lane, for a purchase and sales price of not less than $230,000, with the resale of said property to be subject to a restriction agreement requiring construction of a single-family residence of not less than 2,429 square feet of air-conditioned space with an assessed value of the property upon completion of construction, inclusive of both land and improvements, to be not less than $580,000.
I have a motion by Councilmember Williams.
Be happy to second.
Second by Councilmember Roman. Is there any more discussion? Seeing no one requesting to speak, I'll ask you all to vote at this time. Motion passes unanimously. Seeing no more business to conduct this evening, I will adjourn tonight's meeting at 8:26 p.m. Good night, everyone.